Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we are in my sketchbook. It's the Illo sketchbook, the same one Drawing with Waffles has, which is pretty cool. But anyway, today we are going to be drawing some portraits. We've actually done this once before, but today I'm going to be drawing portraits and then coloring them in with Ohuhu markers. So we're going a step further and getting in some practice. Before I begin, be sure to like and subscribe and let's get into it. Grabbing my pencil, but before we get too far into the video, I thought this would be a really fun thing to do together. So I made this coloring page of these portraits that I'm going to do. So if you want to color in along with me, or you can just draw them on your own, but I feel like this would be a fun way for those of us who don't want to draw right now, who just want to color, to also participate in this. So let's go ahead and get started. That will be linked in the description and in the comments if you're interested, but let's move along. So for now, I have to sketch everything out. So I'm starting by sketching out this first portrait. All of the portraits that I'm referencing will also be on my Pinterest, so if you do want to color or draw along, you can use those as well. I will link that down below as well, that way you have access to it. And anyway, I'm getting started on this first one. The first thing I'm doing is sketching out, and I don't want to go too crazy. I'm trying to keep it true to my style. I want it to be recognizable as the person that I'm drawing, but I don't want it to be extremely realistic. I'm trying to have fun and mainly practice shading. Now I'm going in with my Ohuhu fine liners, and I'm using 0.5 to outline everything. So if you want to practice outlining too, you can also do that on the sheet that I provided. But anyway, I'm going ahead and just going in and outlining everything that I did draw already, just to make it bolder and again to make it a little more in my style. So I'm just going ahead and adding the same line thickness everywhere around the entire thing. That way it can get ready to be colored on, which I have not done any Ohuhu portraits. I think maybe a couple, but really this is something I definitely need practice in. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was pretty nervous about coloring these in because I just haven't done it before, and it seemed really daunting to do multiple portraits. Portraits in general are really hard. It's really hard to draw people, but then to color them in using Ohuhu markers or alcohol-based markers is even more of a challenge. So I finally erased. I'm using my new Ohuhu skin color set. These are the colors that it comes with, and I'm going to be using specifically 3 colors. This one as the base, that as the shading, and then this as kind of warmer tones. So I'm going ahead straight into it, and I'm very hesitant at first. I'm very nervous kind of placing things selectively around everywhere. I try to do a little bit of shading first, but then ended up going in with the darker color to finally add in shading. And at first, it looked really scary, but I was able to blend it out, and once I had a little bit of practice blending the colors, then I wasn't so scared to make some bold choices. So first, I really focused on using the same base color that I had originally used to kind of add in some light shading everywhere. That way it was nothing too crazy that I couldn't fix, but that way I could get kind of an idea of where all of the shading needed to be to make it look like the reference. And then I added in some blush, added in some darker colors, and always remembered I had the ability to blend it all out. Now I'm going in with the eyebrows, and I used the same color I'm using on the hair to do the eyebrows, and then I colored in the rest of the hair. Looking back on this drawing, I think that one of the mistakes that I made with the first one was that I kind of over rendered it and like did too much work on it. Like there's a point when you really just shouldn't apply any more alcohol marker, when the paper has taken all that it can and you just shouldn't use anymore. And I think I took this drawing past that point. I think it was a great warm-up, but you'll see by the end how much better it gets and how much more practice I already get in from then. I decided to go in with some white gel pen, add in a background because I felt like that would help her pop out a little more, and then this one was completed. And I think for a first go around, it turned out pretty dang well. So now I'm pretty excited to go on to the next one and to try to keep improving and practicing. And I feel like I've learned a couple things already now that I've had a little bit of practice. And don't let this video editing fool you. Each one of these drawings took me over 30 minutes to do and make full end to start to finish. So it took some time in here, but now I'm sketching out this second portrait, which again, you can find on my Pinterest, the reference for it. But anyway, I'm going ahead and just sketching sketching everything that I see, really focusing on the characteristics that make that individual look like themselves. So really focusing on the shapes that I see in the eyes and the nose and the mouth, which can be really tricky because in drawing, for example, if I told you to think about a nose, you will visualize a nose in your head. So you have an idea of what a nose is supposed to look like already there. So it's really hard to look past what your idea of a nose looks like and actually see the nose that you're drawing. I'm not sure if that made a lot of sense, but that's something to be aware of in your art if you're drawing. And now it's time to go in and color this one, which I'm very excited about. It's time to actually see if I learned anything at all from the last drawing. So this time I started out with just a full base of my base color and just filled in the entire face. And now I'm going in with my shading and going back in with the original base to blend everything out and add even more shading. So I kind of went back and forth in that way until I had the colors saturated like I wanted them to. Then I added in some pink to warm up the drawing. I decided for the lips to do a more lipstick red this time. And then for the eyes, I did blue. For the hair, I decided to go with potato brown, which is a really popular color, you know. If you know, you know. Then I went ahead and added in some darker shades to really add some texture to the hair. To do this, I just added streaks from the top of the roots and then down every once in a while, but left space for highlights in the hair. And then I took an even darker shade and repeated that process again. And now it's time to go in with the highlight. I love gel pens and they really help bring up the colors that you need to and really help highlight specific areas that are lit and really help with your light source. I added in a background and now it's time for the next drawing. For this drawing, I really wanted to practice some emotion. I felt like the faces I had done so far were just kind of, you know, no expression or anything, and I really need to practice my expressions and adding in dynamic stuff into my art. Dynamic stuff, very official professional name. But anyway, so I wanted to practice somebody showing some emotion. So I picked this reference and now I'm going in and going ahead and trying to draw that, which really challenged my drawing skills. This one definitely took the most time for me to sketch out because it was definitely the most challenging expression and I'm really not used to it, like I said before. So this was a very hard one for me to do and it took a lot of patience and practice. It's also really hard to incorporate wrinkles when you're using expressions without making somebody look older than they are. So it's really a really fine line of adding the right amount of detail, but not too much detail. So once I'd finally outlined everything, then I could go ahead and start struggling with this one with my Ohuhu colors. So the first thing I did again was color in the base completely with one shade with my base shade. And then I went ahead and layered on those same color again to really build up the shadows in a light way. That way I could really test out where I wanted all of the shading to be placed. And then I went ahead and brought in a little bit deeper of shadows to really start helping myself see where everything needed to be. So I started adding them in. If they looked too harsh, I just blended them out again. Like after I added in all of this color, I went ahead back in with my lighter base and blended it all out because it was looking a little bit harsh and a little bit crazy. Now I'm going ahead in with my warmer colors again and adding in some blush, especially for her since she's supposed to look a little bit flustered. I felt like some color to her face would really help sell the idea. And now I'm doing the hair, which was also really tricky. It was supposed to be like a white, light blonde color, which is very hard for me to draw. I added in some yellow and some different shades of tan. And then I went ahead in with my highlights. And overall, I'm pretty happy with this one. I also added in some of the freckles that were there. And I think it's recognizable as the image, but I definitely had a very hard time with this one. I also added in a little bit of a dark background to really convey the mood. And then this one was completed, and overall I'm pretty happy with it, especially when it's probably the first emotion I've ever drawn in my life. And now it is time for the last portrait, which, spoiler alert, turned out to be my absolute favorite. By this point, I had been sketching and drawing for over an hour and a half, so I kind of really was warmed up and knew what I was trying to do with my art. I'd had so much practice now sketching and identifying what features make a person look like themselves, if that makes any sense at all. But I felt very warmed up and practiced, and I was actually having a lot of fun doing it, and I really got the hang of what I should be emphasizing and how to also make it look like my style, but also still maintaining what the person looks like and letting them show through. So I was having a lot of fun sketching it out, and emphasizing certain things. I was also getting better at outlining because overall I was just feeling more confident since I had so much practice. I say so much practice, I know it's only one time, but I mean I just felt so much more confident than when I first started and really didn't know at all how the Ohuhu markers were going to respond and how I was going to make it look like skin and skin tones and shading and all of that. It was very overwhelming at first, but once I dipped my toes into the water a little bit, I just jumped right into the deep end. Do you know what I'm saying? I felt way more confident and I was way more able to just confidently know where I wanted things, how I wanted it to look, and then I felt more sure about it too, and I was able to experiment a little bit more and learn a lot more from it because I wasn't so scared that I was just going to mess everything up. So now I'm going in with my colors, which I'm already super excited about because these ones are really saturated, and that was something that I was really looking for. I stuck to the tried and true pattern of starting with my base color first and then adding in extra base colors on top of that to really saturate it. So just using the same color over and over to make sure that I really built up the shading that I wanted before I added anything dramatic. And that's really what I stuck to this time, and it was more subtle, but it also really delivered the point more. I also went in with a more saturated, deeper color on this one, added in some freckles, but this one turned out to be my favorite, even though it was almost the least rendered. I think I really found a way to quickly get my point across and not spend so much time trying to build up the shading that I overdo it, like how I did on the first one. I think this one turned out a lot better, even though it didn't take as much time or as much time building up the colors, because I felt like I was able to deliver it quicker and more effectively. So then I went ahead and colored in the hair. I completely forgot to do the eyes. Like, I looked at the drawing, I was like, oh my gosh, she has no eye color. And then I colored that in, colored in her flower in her hair, so added in a little bit of detail there. And then I went ahead in with my white gel pen details, and to finalize everything in this drawing, I added in some eyelashes, and then this one was complete, and you can already see the improvement from that one to the first one, and that's what I mean by how much practice pays off. So here's 1 through 4 in order, and then I decided to number all of them as well. That way I remembered the order that I did them later, and I also labeled it just for fun, portrait practice. And here's how it turned out. I think it turned out so good, and I am so proud of how much I improved just within this one page of practice. If you colored along or drew along, let me know and tag me on Instagram at Anchored Art Designs because I'd love to see it. Also, let me know which one of these turned out to be your favorite. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. P.S. Does your art desk look like this after you do a project?